Hey, what's up guys? Figured I'd make a build guide video before I quit Poe for good. So this is my flicker build. I've got 12 frenzy charges, as you can see. You don't really need that much life. 4100 is enough. Defense wise, all resistances are capped, overcapped if anything. Just going to give a quick rundown of my gear and how it runs. So you have your flicker 6-link. You can POB whichever gems work best for you, but roughly flicker. Close combat, Ice Bite, 2123 is important here because it scales with Frenzy. Multi-strike, of course, if you can afford the Awakened and Elemental damage. And then lastly, I run Ruthless, and then Ruthless for bosses, but most of the time I'm just running Awakened Melee Splash. So this is your main skill here in your Furls, and Furls just has permanent uptime on Frenzy and a little bonus power charges, so you want to run that. If you can afford it, get some rings with max Frenzy charges. You're going to want to slam it with Essence of Horror so you get that prefix. Spend 6 to 8x rolling them until you get tier 1 or tier 2 life and prefix essences. Same thing with the other ring. As you can see, it's another maximum frenzy charges base. So again, tier 1 life, 4 to 7 added cold damage, and then craft whatever else you need. You can also get an additional 1 frenzy charge from your shield. So here we go. I again rolled this with essences to max out a bit more of my chaos resist and just filled in the rest. Boots, Dark Ray Vectors are pretty much a go-to for any flicker build. If you can find one that has some good implicits like increased maximum life and socketed AoE gems, that's the way to go. Here I have Hatred, Herald of Ice, my War Chief, and as well Precision, and they all benefit from those AoE gems. Note that AoE is better than Aura because Herald of Ice does not benefit from Aura. Gloves, you want a 1 to maximum frenzy charges, and strike skills target at least 1 additional enemy, 2 additional enemies if you can afford it, because it just greatly increases the amount of AoE damage you're doing. Every time you cast Flicker, you're hitting 2 additional pieces, and if you've got Awakened Melee Splash in your build, that's a lot of AoE. You're just going to clear maps like butter. Sword, Paradoxica is the go-to. Weapon range I chose, not sure why. I'm sure you can swap that out for elemental damage. But again, attack speed, LE pen quality is the way to go here. I chose a Stygian Vice with no resistances on it in case I wanted to upgrade to a Headhunter in the future. I never ended up farming for one, so it's moot. But if you do decide to get resists on here, then it makes it easier to roll your rings the way you want to. Helmet, Replica Abyssus. You can also get a rare Blizzard Crown if you want, and then roll that instead, so that way you're not taking the increased elemental damage. But again, I made it to 98 with 4100 HP, so it's really not a concern because you'll pretty much be deleting things before they can hit you. And then just to round off the neck, some generic, cold damage, accuracy, life, whatever you may need. I rolled 5 or 6 necklaces to get an increased damage per frenzy charge, and when you have 12 frenzy charges, that really adds up quickly. So that's the overview for my gear. Again, for rolls, frenzy, 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 frenzy on 5 pieces of gear, and then just some generic belt and necklace to top it off. Standard flasks, Bottle of Faith, Vinctar, and Atziri's Promise give you the most DPS per POB. You want another flask for critical strike chances lucky. That's going to give you almost more damage even than Bottle of Faith depending on your specific gear, and immune to curses, so you can really run any map like elemental weakness or vulnerability without any cause for concern. Flicker is not ideal for bossing. If you'll notice on some of my other build videos, you might see me running Frenzy instead. So if it's a boss like Maven, I'll swap to Frenzy, and that way you have a bit more control. You don't want to be flickering into Shaper Balls. So I gem swap there as well. These are only the really 2 pieces you need to swap for. Again, Ruthless if you're doing a single target boss that you don't need Awakened Melee Splash. That's roughly it for the gear. I'll go quickly over my tree. Tree wise, again, since I didn't farm enough this league for a Headhunter, I kind of quit at 36 challenges. You'll notice on my necklace I allocate Resourcefulness. This is for the Inspired Learning. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, and this satisfies Inspired Learning, which really makes it great for Ultimatum League. Alternatively, if you do have a headhunter. You don't need resourcefulness, and you can allocate disemboweling here, which will give you more DPS. Ascendancy, we go Avatar of the Slaughter. Again, with the amount of frenzy charges you have, this just scales insane. And Avatar of the Veil. So you'll notice I have no removes frozen, removes shocked, etc. on my flasks. This is just way too good. Even as a quality of life, if I wasn't elemental, that I would take it, but given that I am, this is just amazing. And again, phasing, chance to dodge attack hits. If you notice on my defense, with the passive from my boots, I'm at 75% chance to dodge attack hits, because these boots give you about 24% on top of everything else, and chance to dodge spells is 45. So you're pretty safe despite having only 4k life. You want to run an intuitive leap. Again, it's just a quick, easy way to get these 5 points. The rest I basically found via POB testing, but I'm at level 98, so almost at the cap. Forces of Nature is strong, so you want to go down the side path. Some people may ask why I don't take a lot of life nodes, and really they're just not worth it. So let's say I go here, Glyph Joy, I get 7% increased max life from here, but on top of that I get 2 other damage nodes, as opposed to just taking, let's say, 1 life node, 2 life node, and 3 life nodes. Or even if I were to go into this sub tree over here, you're gaining like what, maybe an extra 8 or 9% life, but almost no damage. So it's much better to just allocate the extra nodes for jewel sockets as opposed to filling out the life. And again, you're really flicker, so whether you have 3.7 or 4.1, if you get hit once, you're probably going to die anyways, so that extra 100 doesn't really help much. Since I am playing Paradoxica with swords, you want to go for the strong nodes, Fatal Blade. There's Honed Edge over here. These 2 are extremely strong. As I have a shield, Command of the Elements. I went the north path here to save a node, and also gives me 6% resist, so it's a nice way to cap off. If you don't need this, going south here does give you some more damage. So again, costs an extra point. Wind Dancer is an extremely strong node to take. Less damage taken if you haven't been hit, which is amazing, and if you have, then you get more evasion. So it's kind of a trade-off, but it's just a general nice to have if you haven't been hit, and here comes a large ability out of nowhere, 20% extra EHP effectively. I went with 2 cluster nodes. It just seemed to work out for me. If you go into POB, you'll find some builds that probably have more DPS than mine, but I wanted to try something different. So here I took a sword and axe node. Blood Scent, because I like the rage mechanic during ultimatums. They really scale, and if you don't leave a map from start to end, you become quite a bit faster. Calamitous, again, just generally good AoE. I'm not going to go too much into depth. Martial Prowess to help cap off some of these chance to hit. See, if I unallocate it, you go a little bit down. So this is just quite perfect for my build where I'm not getting accuracy from a lot of my pieces. Lastly, you just want some generic jewels that have, some amount of melee crit or global crit. Usually 1-2 crit mods is nice, as well as max life, and in this case I was a little short on my resist, so I got 1 jewel with fire and cold resist. As you see here, another jewel multiplier as well as max life. I'm running a not too expensive Watcher's Eye. Adding flat cold seems to work best with my gear, but you might get more damage out of a percent critical herald, percent critical hatred. And then again, since I'm running 4 auras, one of them being precision, this is just a nice little boost with the attack speed. Disciple of the Slaughter, very nice note to have. Again, just a lot of extra scaling on the 12 frenzy charges you have, so 60% evasion. This is what, 24% movement speed, 24% attack speed, and then what is that, 8% damage, so 96% damage. Just incredibly strong with the amount of frenzies we're stacking. And again, you want to take every free frenzy node you can, because that's just insane damage with Raider. I took another jewel here. You'll see I have Prismatic Heart, another instance of Prismatic Heart, really just capping my resists. Blizzard Collar, you'll be running some curses on hit, and then Widespread Destruction. Again, just some generic good nodes. You'll see again the jewels are just some sort of generic crit multi and life. With Flicker, you really have one build, which is one ability, just Flicker. I'll run a quick map to demonstrate. You notice I'm poor as I've given everything away by this point. So, flicker is not too complicated. As you see, melee splash, kind of just hold right click and go. It's perfect, it satisfies my OCD. You just want to go, not really think too much. So it's fun for me. Some people get seasick doing this kind of build. It's not for them, I understand. One thing is if I'm bossing, so let me pop in here. You want to pop Vortex, which I have linked to Frostbite and LD weakness, and Awaken Hex Touch lets me cast 2 curses, so it's quite convenient. You see he's got 2 curse debuffs, and that makes him take so much more damage. Again, easy boss. This map was not modified in any way, so you don't really have to swap, but in case there's a boss with AoE that you can't sit in, feel free to swap to Frenzy before killing it, and it's quite smooth. So that's really about it. You're jumping around, casting Vortex. Since it's instant cast, it's quite simple to do. There's no real time to pause and cast anything. If you need extra damage, you could always pop the totem. I have Sigil of Power. I find this nice to use, as well as Veil Haste and Veil Ancestral Warchief. The Sigil of Power is essentially an extra free Vinctar, so if you see on some of my Cyrus videos as he's changing phases, I just drop it underneath him and start blowing him up. It's a nice extra flask. It doesn't cost you anything, just a gem slot. So those are my choices. Run Blood Rage. Again, just some extra damage boost. That's really about it. So you have 1 skill to use. You've got your 4 auras, and then when you want to get some extra damage, Vortex and Sigil. That's really about as simple as the build gets. You run around the map, you hold right click until everything dies. Welcome to Flicker Strike. Yeah, that's really about it, guys. Hope you enjoy this build as much as I did. It's not cheap by any means. These rings are probably about 60 or 70 X a piece. The shield is about 30. The gloves are about 30. Paradoxica is 30. You know, Awaken Hex Touch is another 15. Multi-Strike. Ice Bite might be expensive. For rolls is what, 10? These boots are about 8x with these 2 rolls, only once on the market. Bottled Faith is what, 10 or 13. So you're looking at about probably 200-300x, but it's just mad fun. If you enjoy Flicker, you're gonna know that how fun it is, and I don't really need to convince you, but loved it. It's definitely worth every penny. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave in the comments below, and I'm gonna answer them the best I can. I'm giving away all my gear, so yeah, it's a good run. See you.